Hello and welcome back to Culz Book Reviews. That's right guys, we are doing 2 book reviews in a single day. If you didn't catch our first one, we did Kong Unmade, link above, as well as we'll have a link at the end of the video. But in this episode we discuss an authenticated history of the famous Bell Witch by M.V. Ingram. Now to some this is the most famous ghost story in a way. Other times people describe it more as a witchcraft story. And some people just say it's one of the scariest stories they've ever read. So the question is, does this hold up? We had previously talked a little bit about the Bell Witch thanks to an episode we reviewed of Expedition X, where they went and tried to figure out, is there any truth to this? And so I guess we'll jump kind of right into the story in just a second, but let's just kind of quickly go over the cover, the back, and what the book looks like on the inside. So as you can see, at least this copy that I got says an authenticated history of the famous Bell Witch, and just M.V. Ingram, simple red cover. As you can see, that's all it says too on the side. If I can get it to focus here, maybe not. An authenticated history of the Bell Witch by Ingram. And then just on the back, kind of a brief synopsis. In the first decade of the 1800s, John Bell moved his family to North Carolina and then to Tennessee. And in Tennessee, that's where all this kind of happened. Right here is your ISBN if you guys need that. So overall, this book is only 174 pages, and it's pretty much just text. I mean, I will flip through it here, and as you can see, just a lot of text, which is okay. Being 174 pages, for the most part, it wasn't a super long read, but we'll kind of get more into that here in just a second. So the writing style is pretty similar to any other book you would read that was written around this time. This was written in 1894, and we have previously done like the Billy the Kid one written by Pat Garrett, which came out about the same time. And the writing styles are both very similar as far as how they kind of describe things. It's very almost cut and dry. And then I think another thing for people going to look at reading this, the language that we speak now is very different than the language they speak back in the day. I mean, there's a lot of different words and terms, especially when you get to different parts of, the country as it's seen in this book, where just their accents and their countries of origin and their original languages are so much different even today compared to what they would speak if you visited that country today. And so that could be a challenge to some people. Like, it could be almost a slog. I don't want to say it like that, but it could be almost a hard, really just tiresome read for some people. And I could definitely see that. Now, for me, it wasn't super hard. It was definitely intriguing. I think more intriguing than the story of the witch, which really doesn't focus a ton in the book, is just the different languages and kind of day-to-day activities. I will say it's kind of confusing that people say it's a ghost story when it's like a witchcraft story, and we'll get more into that. I think we have to do an episode on the Bell Witch at some point. Go out to Tennessee, do a Tales of the Craft, a proper episode, and properly describe the Bell Witch story to you guys. So I don't want to go too in depth. I will say at points, man, that Bell Witch doesn't seem good. It doesn't seem bad. It latches on and likes one of the family members, but at the same time, it's killing and taunting the other members of the Bell family. And then at the same time, it shares some of the bad sentiments of the people at the time, who disliked these slaves and didn't think these slaves should be in the house. So that's where at times you think this isn't true. It's just a scary story, an urban legend that gets passed down, and especially because this was written well after the family had already passed away. But at the same time, if you watch our Expedition X, they found some material that at least shows there was stories during that time that were being passed down. The Andrew Jackson portion, as far as when he went there, he was intrigued. There's no concrete evidence that happened. To me, was this the scariest thing I had ever read in my life, period? No. To me, it really wasn't even that scary. It read more like just a historical document. Like I said, when we read the Authenticated History of Billy the Kid, which similar title, That one by Pat Garrett. It's almost kind of the same writing, though that one's a little bit easier to read. I don't think it would be as hard to some people because there's not as many different dialects and just different accents. So I could definitely see that one being an easier book to read. Do I recommend it? Yes and no. Like I said, it's probably not the easiest thing to read, and there's probably easier things for you to read. But if you want more of an original source, if you can say that, considering how long after the event that this was written, it's probably the best thing you're going to get. Like I said, I do believe that we will talk about this in a future Tales of the Craft episode at some point. I think going to Tennessee would be very, very good for the team as well as for the episode. You got to go to the locations to really see what's going on. I also recommend that Expedition X. While they didn't really find a ton, they did find stuff, if that makes sense. I really don't want to spoil it. Go watch a review if you've already seen it. If not, go check it out. I recommend it. Overall, I would probably say a 6 out of 10 is more than fair. Higher than I probably would have rated this book if it was just pure fiction. But being that it is nonfiction, I think it bumped it up a tad. So a 6 out of 10, I do sort of recommend it if you're into history and if you want a better source on the famous Bell Witch and see where it really started. I will say there's not a ton of Bell Witch in this. If you want a scary story, it's not that. It's not one of those horror movies you're going to see in the theaters now. If they were to make this a horror movie now, it would be highly dramatized. So overall, yeah, 6 out of 10. It's okay. It's raining. That's why we're cutting this short. Because I don't want to ruin the book. And I'm getting wet and I'm going to ruin the camera. But overall, like I said, we will touch more on this. We have other stuff on the channel about Bell Witch, and stay tuned. But if you want to see more Culz book reviews, click that link to your left. If you want to see more about what we're doing here at Culz Paranormal, click that link to your right. And don't forget to hit that like and give us a subscribe. And let us know, A, do you want more stuff about Bell Witch, more of the history, and a better episode? And B, did you read this book? And did you think it was the scariest thing ever written? Hi, Angel.